defeated at the Battle of Trafalgar, and that they were actually designed by a man. On your left is South Africa House. Later in the day, the fountains, of course, will be playing in Trafalgar Square. And now we're going to drive through Admiralty Arch, which is this triple archway ahead of us, which will take us down to Buckingham Palace. And just ahead of us, on a pedestal again, is another king on a horse, and that's poor old Charles I, who was beheaded at the behest of Oliver Cromwell. Beheaded close by here in Waterloo. Sorry, in Whitehall. Here we are on the right. Charles I, there he is. And across the square, the sand-coloured building is Canada House, there on the right. If you have a chance of visiting the National Gallery, do. And yeah, but we will see it closer. So that is Big Ben down there. Don't worry, though, we're going to see it closer. George I, George IV, and the architect was John Nash. They were originally houses, but they're separate houses built in terraces. But they, of course, have been Park, incidentally, on the right-hand side, which would take you up to your hotel. Red flowers always here for Majesty. And in front of the palace, you've got a statue of Queen Victoria, who had a nose job done a couple of years ago, and not a great success, is it? Especially in the rain. It sounds out like a sore thumb, a sore nose, perhaps. And now here we have Buckingham Palace on the left-hand side, and there are the soldiers in their sentry boxes, looking like toy soldiers. And in the middle, the famous balcony, where the Queen always appears on high days and holidays. There it is. She's not there today, she's out at Windsor. She always spends a long weekend at Windsor, comes back at Monday lunchtime to start work again in London. She herself calls Buckingham Palace her office. You can see across on your right that high-rise block. Can you see it? Ahead of us now. From the top, from the offices there, they can look straight into the gardens of Buckingham Palace, which are behind the palace. So there's not much point in the Queen using the gardens, because it's not private anymore for her. So this is why every spare moment seems to be spent out at Windsor Castle, where she has a lot more privacy, where the soldiers are housed who are on duty at Buckingham Palace. And those soldiers, of course, come from crack regiments. They're proper fighting soldiers, and they're only at Buckingham Palace on a tour of duty, perhaps for 6 months, and then they go back to somewhere in the country, or out to Hong Kong maybe, to Canada, all over Europe.
How many at a time do they house?
How many soldiers in there at a time? I think probably a couple of them. And this part of London we call Victoria, just behind Buckingham Palace. Named of the buildings here, and everything you see here in Victoria Street was put up in the 1960s. It was a fairly sleazy area anyway, as often, you know, towns are around main railway stations. On your right is the Catholic Cathedral, big red brick building. Now, after the war, as you see, we built a lot of concrete, with masses built with concrete, but nowadays we're building more with red brick. And this building on the right was completed a couple of years ago. I'm not saying it's all red brick, but it has become much more fashionable, because it's a more traditional way of building. We are dead keen on tradition in this country. Architecture, you'll have too many parking problems and couldn't get down a bus down it. So this is the River Thames, which is tidal, as you see. The tide, alas, is out at the moment. It always looks better when the tide's in. But round now, to your left, are the Houses of Parliament. Now, I'm afraid the big Victoria Tower is being cleaned up at the moment. They've been cleaning Parliament up for the last 15 to 20 years, and now it's the turn of the Victoria Tower. And this is where I think we can stop, can't we, around the corner? Yes, Danny's going to risk it. We're not really, we'll have a look. See, we're not really allowed to stop here anymore, except on Sundays. And if there are no police down there, we'll stop on the corner, and if you don't mind braving the rain, you with the cameras, if you want to nip out and take a photograph, you're most welcome. And as we go round the corner, there is a church on the right-hand side. You can see it from here, just ahead of us, slightly to the left. It'll be on the right. that is now a museum of garden history. A lot of our churches, alas, are being closed down because there are not enough people attending them.
The Tower of Big Ben.
Back in.
Is the old War Ministry, and the one looking like the Kremlin is in fact the Royal Horse Guards Hotel. And on the right you've got your first glimpse of St Paul's Cathedral with the dome. Something quite different has happened to it. Part of it, at the one end, part of it is London University, King's College. This end is the Inland Revenue, as you'll see over the doorway. And then the front of it has been taken over by the Courtauld Institute of Art. A very lovely museum of art at the Courtauld. Now you see Inland Revenue. And this part here now, in fact, belongs to the Courtauld Institute of Art. The entrance is just around the corner. And now we're just going to cross right in the distance. There it is. And of course we are now back on the north side of the river in the west end of London, and if you were to go down here on your left there's Drury Lane with Miss Saigon. Chippendales, I think you all know that, male strip shows I'm told. I've no idea what it was till American clients told me. So lots of Covent Garden, which is the old market, which is now a place where people go and shop and go to restaurants, that sort of thing. On your right hand side here, that's Bush House, which is where is the home of the British Overseas Broadcasting Corporation. And then attached to it is, just down here across the next street, is Australia House. This is where you would come for information about emigrating or visiting Australia, here on the right hand side. And then there's a statue of Gladstone, who was the Temple Bar, as it's called, an obelisk with a dragon on top. Can you all see it? That is the border between the West End and the City of London. We're now in the West End, and we're then going to drive past Temple Bar, and now we're all in the City of London. And as you probably know, in 1666 there was the Great Fire of London, and the whole of the city practically burnt down. The Rolls, yes. Somebody important. I don't know who it is. Could be the Lord Mayor of London. Not sure. No, it's an ambassador. There, he's just got out. He's going in. Oh, isn't he looking splendid? Now, I'll see if I can find out what that's called. Royal Exchange. Below it, the statue of the Duke of Wellington. And the big building above, behind, is the National Westminster Bank, the tallest building in the City of London. Nice view, that. Bridge is the site for the oldest bridge in London, but this one actually dates from 1973. We needed a wider bridge, and you know where the last one is, don't you? It's out in America on Lake Havasu. People say that you thought you bought Tower Bridge. That's Tower Bridge in the distance. That is the most, I mean, London Bridge is famous because of the nursery rhyme and things like that, but it's the view of Tower Bridge which is so famous. It's a drawbridge. It opens at the bottom, in the middle, and in front of you, between us and Tower Bridge, is the Pool of London. This was really part of the docks of London, but beyond it, beyond Tower Bridge, you have the real docks, which of course are all dead as a dodo nowadays, and that's where lots of rebuilding has been going on, a complete new area of London. The ship in the foreground, the bigger one of the two, ship, I don't know what it is. I don't even know what kind of ship it is. Do you know, Danny? There's quite often a visiting naval ship here. And one last thing, to your left, just down there, that yellow building, rather a pretty old building, that's Old Billingsgate Fish Market. Can you see it? To your left, just beyond the bridge, quite close to us. Yeah. There are three buildings, and then the little yellow one. Now that's been refurbished inside for stockbrokers, and it's been on the market now for at least 3 years. Still no takers. All beautifully done inside. And on your, thank you Danny, and ahead of you, all those buildings on the other side of the river are part of London Bridge City. It was a new development started up some years ago with money from the Kuwaiti royal family. I think they've had a few problems, haven't they, with their monies recently? I don't know. Anyway, you can see it's some of them are new buildings, some of them are old ones, like London Bridge Hospital, which is still a private hospital, and Hayes Wharf, that was built in the 1930s in Art Deco style. And because you see him putting his tongue
It is
out.
a griffin, he says, because he's standing on his hind legs.
Well, some say it's a griffin, I think also because of the shape of his feet. They're... Anyway, we usually say a dragon, but you can call him a griffin if you like. It doesn't really matter. He is certainly the mythical creature.
Yeah, poor tongue.
But he certainly could have been... Never mind, you will get a view, when we finally get to the Tower of London, you'll get a view of Tower Bridge.
With sandals.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it.
Silver sandals, yellow brown shoes. Leave the ladies alone. Yeah, right.
Anyway, back to the royal family.
He's
Where was I?
kidnapped her.
Somebody asked me a question. Where's the castle?
Oh, you can see it.
No, yeah.
Now you've got a good view of the monument again on your right.
Pronto. No quiero.
The church on the right is sometimes known as the Dick Whittington Church, because Dick Whittington, when he was Mayor of London, 4 times he was Mayor, attended services in that church. Theatre doesn't look much like a theatre, but it's at the end of the tunnel here on the right-hand side, built on the site of Old Puddle Dock on the right. The Lion is. And now we're come up alongside the River Thames onto the embankment. It wasn't up until the last century, the Thames was very much wider going through London, and land was recovered from the River Thames, and this road was built which goes right along the side of the river until the Houses of Parliament, and then again from Parliament right down as far as Chelsea. Now, in this country, if you study law at university, you get your law degree to the City of London from Egypt in the last century,
Right here, baby.
and given to Queen Victoria as a present. She obviously didn't quite know what to do with it, so she said, well, put it down here on the embankment. Not a joke about them. You do get a lot of German coaches coming over here, mostly from North Germany, Central Germany, down in the south, so the Munich area, that really is particularly from Vienna, made a lot of money in Canada, and they've invested money in the London Dock.
I think not.
Sooty black.
There's a separation under the bridge there. It's white and then it's dark. Is that how high the river gets?
That's high tide. The cameras on it. She was an early British queen, belonged to the Iceni tribe, and when the Romans invaded us, she in fact sacked London, burnt London, and she was then taken prisoner by the Romans and took poison to avoid being murdered and tortured by them.
Way to go.
Rather extraordinary chariot, because there are no reins on it. Built a few years after that, so the middle of the last century it was completed. 2 architects were involved. On your right, where the grass is, on the corner, on this corner now, on the right, okay?
Churchill.
Churchill. And on your left is the entrance to the House of Commons, Parliament Church, St Margaret's, here on the left-hand side. And this is Parliament Square. Now we're going, this is the Abbey on the left, this is where we're going to have our visit. And we'll be going in at the west door and coming out at Poets' Corner. And that's where Danny's going to pick us up. So whatever you do, please keep with me, won't you? Don't get lost. Because, and if you do get lost, it's highly unlikely, we're a small group, please wait for me at Poets' Corner. Now, I'm not stopping here at the bookshop, we're going straight in. There is another bookstall in the South Transept at Poets' Corner, should you want to.
Alright, let me get the two of you.
Okay.
You get us all in?
Oh, got all of us with a big pen.
You get us?
Yeah. Hear us, you know what I mean? That's right.
This is a statue of George V, and he said a king won't take any crap. See if I can get you a good shot. You see the bird? Right on his head. That's Westminster Abbey.
Richard Lionheart. And the next entrance is for the public on the right who want to go and listen to a debate. You often, you know, they start at about 2:30. What's today? Monday, yes. You queue on this side, you see, for the House of Lords, and the other side for the House of Commons. Obviously, there usually is a queue outside. Doesn't look as if there's going to be anything very interesting on today. And if there are long queues, well, you can always go into the House of Lords. And then the next statue on the right is Oliver Cromwell on the right. And behind Oliver is the big Westminster Hall, the one with the grey-green roof. This is the original building, dating from the actually dating from the 1200s, but rebuilt in the 1300s, so it's really 14th century, 1300s. And that's there's a huge hall in there, and when a king dies, or somebody like Churchill dies, that's where they actually lie in state before the... Inside is St Margaret's Church, which is where members of Parliament could get married or have their children baptised. Lives. You used to be able to walk down there, you know, and actually look at the door. You'd even knock on the door, I suppose, except there's a policeman standing outside. But now it's completely best to come in and out, but you just can't really see number 11, not number 10 at all. But number 10 is the last but one black house on the right-hand side. So when we look down Downing Street, last but one black house on the right at the end. And now as we come into Parliament Street and into Whitehall, this is the Treasury on the left-hand side. And the Treasury is then followed by the Foreign Office on the left. So this next building, the Foreign Office. And opposite the Foreign Office in the middle of the road is the cenotaph to the dead of World War I and II. And now look to your left, down Downing Street. Number 10 is right at the end on the right, second but one last. There we are.
Oh, right, I saw it, the red brick building.
But as you see, we're not allowed to stop there anymore. Nothing much to see. But if you've got your cameras, and if Danny could just try and cruise slowly past Horse Guards Parade, the guards at Buckingham Palace, of course, for 2 hours. And these are on guard outside Horse Guards Parade. The big parade ground down there in through the archway on the left is where the Queen celebrates her birthday. And aren't they beautifully turned out? They've got plenty of chance. We've still got a little bit of traffic.
Why does he have such a big in front of him? This looks like he's pregnant.
That's the saddle. It does, yes, there it's the high pommel on the saddle.
Oh.
They put the coat, yes, it's draped over, the bottom button is just over the pommel there. So it stands out. They are, they're very young, 17, 18, 19. Very boring job, mind you. And of course they're gawped at and photographed, yes. And they can't move, I mean, a whole hour. Well, I must say you've been a very nice group. I mean, you were so interested in the Abbey, that was wonderful.
I have a question. Why didn't you say Queen of Scots, Mary? Wasn't she a Queen of England? She never got, oh, I see.
She never got there, she was beheaded.
Okay, yeah. One more question.
Heaven knows what this is. Yes.
Why do they wear those wigs?
Wigs.
The men will wear tails, you know, and a stiff bow ties. And it's purely the fashion of the 1700s.
Is on the right, that's the Duke of York. He was an uncle of Queen Victoria's. He was in the army, and he was some of the columns so he could get away from his creditors. But also coming back this way is that you've got again Green Park, on where the red carpet is, that's where visitors go in, and the Queen's apartments are these ones on the north side. I don't know whether you can see two bay windows in the trees there. One's her sitting room, one's her bedroom. Palace, beautiful park. But unfortunately, because of that high-rise block over in the distance there, on your left, slightly behind you, she is totally overseen nowadays. And even you can see into the gardens, apparently, from the... I presume that's with breakfast. Here it is on the left. And the doormen, who are the entrances round the other side, the doormen wear grey bowler hats. You might see one outside. So that, on the left, is the Lanesborough. Yes, the doorman just going in there. But I'm always amazed at how casually, you know, one watches, I've seen the people who are living there going in, and my goodness me, are they casually dressed. And we were talking earlier about the people dressing up for the theatre and that sort of thing. Mind you, a great fat Jag has just driven up there. On the left, it's now a museum. And this is the Hilton Hotel, the big high-rise one on the right-hand side. That was built while George VI was still alive and on the throne, and he was absolutely horrified. It was the first tall building in London, built just after the war. So this is what stand the nasty, smoky, sooty atmosphere. That's why you get so many. So here we are, practically back at the hotel. I hope you've enjoyed the sightseeing tour this morning. You've been a very nice group, I must say, and have a lovely, lovely trip, won't you?
Suit.
Suit? S-U-I-T? S-U-T-E.
This is one of the back streets in London proper. We're actually at the Mayfair Apartments. There's a little restaurant called Flamingo. Picture of the Ritz. Is it the Ritz-Carlton or just plain the Ritz? Okay. I'm spinning 3 seconds here. This is the Piccadilly Circus.
So you're spending 3 minutes there.
Which way are we going?
Walking.
Here's a busy London street. Hey, look at that.
You're supposed to be to your right, remember? You're supposed to stand to your right, remember? Your right is the way you're supposed to go. Your right is the way you go right.
Henry VIII. It contains millions of bricks. It's said to be one of the biggest brick buildings in the world. 600 rooms in Tudor style. You might notice on the top chimneys. And those chimneys are there as a status symbol. In the Tudor period, you had a chimney and you had a fireplace, and that meant you were wealthy. The cardinal, about 100 of them, and every chimney has a different style. One of them are, say, red brick building, much larger, much more in the Renaissance style, when he added another 400 rooms, giving you a total there of 1,000 rooms. Now the windows you see just in front of you on the right, that's part of the tennis court, where the game of real tennis was first played. And it's still played to this day, and on the wall is a portrait of Henry VIII. Not to put anybody off, you would think. He was in there playing tennis when there was a knock on the door. It was somebody coming to tell him that Anne Boleyn had been beheaded at the Tower of London. He said, "Go away, you're interrupting my game." So if you think John McEnroe was a difficult person to play with, the play with Henry VIII. So all we have here at the moment behind all the trees there is an international flower show, the largest in the country. It started here at Hampton Court a couple of years ago, and this year's show is just a few weeks in the month of July. That's actually happening at the moment. So lots of different flowers here, which Actually, you can't see at the moment. At different seasons, they change the displays through spring, autumn, summer, and winter. And there are 2,000 acres and 70 gardeners. And the gardeners are often asked, how can I get my garden to look like this back home? They have one simple response. If you want your garden to look like this, plant grass and leave it for 200 years, or even 400 years. And that's what happens. Now, William and Mary, as we said, lived here. William suffered from asthma, and one day after the death of his wife, she never got to live in this building, she died of smallpox. After her death, he went riding through the park. His horse stumbled over a molehill, and he fell off and broke his neck, which cured his asthma and everything else. That was the end of William. The successive monarchs lived here until George II in 1760. Now, the Queen. If you were really intimate, you'd get right into the centre room, the cabinet, which was their wash closet. And that's where secrets of state were discussed with government ministers. And that's why the inner part. Okay, well what we're looking at now is the rose garden, and you see roses of all types, shapes and colours, and obviously some here is brighter than others. And what you have in front of you is the Great Hall. Now Henry VIII added that to the palace when he stole it, or acquired it, from Cardinal Wolsey. He needed somewhere to entertain the royal court, and there are about, well, a large number of people in the royal court. Nowadays, if the Queen goes home,
we're now going to make our way straight the way across to the coach visit together. And what we're going to do is go on foot through the precincts of Windsor Castle. At the end of that, I'll be showing you to the entrance of the state apartments. State apartments.
It's much cheaper than divorce.
And beside it, you should concentrate a little bit also on these architectural drawings, where you see these, let's say, 3 niches, let's say, divided by these volutes and stained sculptures. Right? That's something very important because later on, when we will be... So, Michelangelo, the Pope told Michelangelo to quit from doing the mausoleum and do the left arm. I doubt you'll be able to see a lot more beautiful than that. There's a very statue seen a lifetime. That is the most unbelievable work. Faccio subito. And another thing which I want you to now see is looking far away distance. That's what we call the heroic look, just like a hero trying to look for distant goals with nature, right? Now, why Michelangelo chose this solution? To me, it's very evident. He didn't want to spoil very much the head of Moses. Yet, he wanted to give the idea of this vision of these 2 beams of light, just coming directly from God. This would be the idea. That's the key of it. In our own days, there's a tendency of the people that they don't like animals in the jail of the Pope. Imagine that this church was built for the purpose of containing those chains. And this church was built 1,500 years ago, shortly before the Roman Empire collapsed. This was built around the year 460, this church. 20 years later, the Roman Empire was built. It is the last church built, by the Roman Empire, financed by an empress. Her name was Eudocia. She wanted to revive the cult dedicated to Peter. And she decided to remove the chains which were left ever since, in the Mamertine prison. She removed the jail. She wanted to have the chains in here. She removed the chains from the jail. She had the chains in here, and for the purpose, she collected these chains. Now, of course, these details are added later, but we are talking about a in the winter day. Look at the two policemen escorting the gypsies there. Speed light. Speed light. And every day, you know, what bothers me is that, you know, every day we have the very same ridiculous problems. Every single day. Same people, you know. Anyhow, let's give another look at the extremely elegant building. We have reconstructions. You will be amazed. But on the other hand, don't forget, Rome was the capital of the world, all right? So there was more money here than in the rest of the world. And used to be, I've seen the fragments of a house of an emperor. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and I tell you. And the place was called a tranquil mansion for the gods. You know, really, that's exactly what it was. It was a section of town where there was this palace. Imagine precious stones on the walls of the building. The most beautiful carvings. We're very lucky because we have these two carvings, official statues dedicated to the emperor, to the emperors without one single scratch. Those statues were buried and being perfectly preserved. The intention was to preserve them, and they succeeded really. The statues were found 120 years ago. And you should see, you know, this luxury of the empire. It's something very hard to imagine. Can you imagine, you know, imagine silk on the wall with precious stones, you know? Then you have an idea. Or gold, silver reliefs, you know, all over. Evidently, the emperor was treated like a god on those days. A wonderful view of the Colosseum to the right side. See, remember, this is the area which is very much damaged. We have two external walls missing. See, to the right side, if you look at the wall, it's still there. So you realize how much of it we have missing. It happened those days. Hey, look at that, an Amazon. On the to the circus, see that? Yeah. There's a lady riding a horse. You think?
She's in Peter's in the back.
Yeah. Well, have you ever been to Greece, to Olympia? Bath, remember I told you about those singers, about the operas and everything else. This is an area, over there is a graveyard there, a family of the Achen Way. This is the Achen Gate. 5 levels, dear friends. That will go all the way to the very top. This is the most elegant of the Roman gates in the world. Now, as soon as we go through this gate, I want you to give a quick look, left or right, depending where you're sitting, in order to really enjoy a perspective. We're looking at the towers and the wall of Rome still standing, despite the fact we're talking about a wall built 1,700 years ago. You can see the slots in here, right? This is lower down and heavy. See, it's hard for you to catch it right this, but unfortunately we can't slow down in an intersection. The whole area, for miles and miles and miles, you know, is crowded of remains. I've seen a real fancy sort of considerations. Who knows whether it was already about 80. Carragam used to be a graveyard for the poor. And let's not forget that the Christians represented the humble class of those days. With a $1, and so we know for sure, you know, that most of the people. See, over there to the left side, you have an idea now, you know, we are pretty close to the, not really to the real platform, but you can easily. In fact, these churches tend to be very popular in the 7th century, when the Oriental Empire sent, still Rome, right, But sent Greek soldiers to defend the occidental part of the empire. So we have St. Anastasia there, St. Isidore, right in here. So there's a little teeny church with a circular dome. And the ruins of the Forum in here. Look at that. It's a spectacular ruins. This was a library here. We see these tall walls. And don't miss the view at, overlooking the Palatine Hill. See? The Senate House, see the pitched roof building. They have been excavating up to 50 feet below in here. Some of the Roman houses were right here on the side of the hill, made out of tufa, volcanic tufa. These are Roman home right here to the corner. Right here, down below. See, here to the right side, street corner. There'll be a lot of those things. See, this is the newer level. Maybe we should remove all of this stuff in order to really show ancient Rome. On the other hand, you know, it's a very difficult decision to take, you know, because what would... But indeed helps the tourist a lot. So was a mausoleum, was a very...
The dome or the basilica?
Mausoleum. Great. You understand? Right? And it is the projection of these balls right in here. This is all what Michelangelo has to do. 4 years of work of 1,015 of
I have one of those right here.
Now the book, now they don't know what would be too. Would be all Islamic people. Piazza del Popolo, People Square. This is where is Bolognese, for instance, right? Next time you come here, you remember that it's a good place. Oh, look how lovely is that beautiful church over there. St. Mary of the People. 2 more churches are here to the right side. Then we have bars, in case, you know, you don't have time for a dinner. Canova, and most of all, Rosati. This is a place where the artists like to join, right here, Rosati. Bolognese is the next place, same, just 20 yards away. To take a look to the right, this is Corso Street. All the way to the end is the Victor Emmanuel Memorial, remember? Then Spanish Steps all the way to the end of the street. Here to the left side is the obelisk of Ramses II, brought here by Julius Caesar. Ramses II was alive in the 12th century BC. And he grew up together with Moses, imagine. The Pincho Terrace, all the way to the very top, right. Big fountain is there. The beautiful garden, Borghese, is there. There's a show dedicated to Salvador Dali, right here. And this is the little precious church. One chapel totally made by Raphael, another one made by Pinturicchio. On one of them we got Michelangelo Caravaggio's, you know, great painter. And this is the city gate to the right, People's Gate. Look how beautiful it is. Beautiful buildings, you know, the banks. When you see a building going to be restored, you bet it belong to banks. And straight ahead is Borghese Garden. We were there yesterday, remember? Give another look. This is the city gate. Popolo Gate.
Okay, now as usual, you know, on the way back to the hotel, we pass by Via Veneto. Maybe it's convenient for you to refresh yourself a little bit and then to walk and go to whatever snack or, you know, little place.
This is Via Veneto. This is where we came in. And here on the street you see parked all the Cadillacs and Rolls Royces of Italy. All the...
I don't see the Corvette.
They don't have any here.
Yes,
We saw one in Switzerland.
the Italian market. I have a Corvette. It's 91. Midlife crisis. Purchase. Midlife crazy, or how do they say that?
I'm trying to use up my film.
And my son, I don't let him drive.
Take a picture, anything.
I might let the Pope drive.
That's the Garden of Eden. Oh, Senso Unico. I thought it was the name of a street, but I see so many signs. I think it means one way.
Just like when we were in Hawaii, you kept saying that. What? Thank you and.
Molano or
I
something.
thought that was the governor.
How do you say thank you in Hawaiian?
Captain, I don't know.
Blyther, Penthouse, and Playboy.
The American Embassy.
The American Embassy all the way. Where's the flag?
That's right here.
Right here, right here.
Okay, friends, it's been a delight for me to escort you through this city. I hope you'll have a nice
big
memory
US
of these few
embassy.
hours we spent together. Remember to be back in 2 years because you